Steinem once said, "We will never solve the feminization of power until we solve the masculinity of wealth." Barbara Provost and Maggie Nielsen are the team at Purse Strings that will help you navigate the ins and outs of financial independence so that you can be financially fearless. This is Women in Money, the shit we don't talk about.
Karen, welcome to Women in Money, the shit we don't talk about. We are thrilled to have you on today. So before we get started, could you introduce who you are and what you do to the listeners?
Absolutely. And thank you so much for having me. I'm excited for our conversation. I am a divorce coach and recovering lawyer. I'm also an arbitrator, a mediator, collaborative divorce professional, and the author of When Happily Ever After Ends, How to Survive Your Divorce Emotionally, Financially, and Legally. And all the work that I do now these days is coaching people to get from the place where they're at, do I stay or do I go, all the way through to the end of their divorce and on to a new and hopefully better life.
Wow. Yeah, you must have helped a lot of people. And so since you've seen so many women navigate divorce, what's a decision women often don't realize is actually a big financial decision until it's too late?
Who's your lawyer?
Really? Let's dive in there.
The lawyer that you hire determines the direction your case goes. Most people, like you've heard, there's all kinds of different ways to get divorced. There's mediation, there's collaborative, there's all the things, right? But they find a lawyer and they say, what should I do? And what they don't realize is the lawyer is not telling them what is going to be best for them. The lawyer is telling them what the lawyer does. So you go to the litigator, they're going to go, I will protect your rights. We can win this. You go to the mediator or the lawyer who's more mediative, they'll go, we can work this out. And it's not about what's right for you. So a better way to go about this is to figure out, how do you want to do this first? Then go find the lawyer who does that.
Interesting. And so with that, can we dive into a couple, what are some of those options if people have never even thought about getting divorced and now this is kind of landing in their lap? Where do you even start with that of which way do I want to get divorced?
What I like to tell people is you are going to divorce the person you're married to. So if you have had a high conflict marriage and you and your spouse can't talk and you're always at each other's throats, you can want an amicable divorce, but the chances that you're going to have one are probably not good, being realistic. So you need a lawyer who maybe they don't fight in court or litigate right out of the box, but they have that skill set. They have that strength to stand up for you. On the other hand, if you've got a spouse who is normally a reasonable, rational person, they're just a little crazy because emotions are high and tempers are flaring and blah, blah, blah. Great. Maybe mediation will be better for you. And the way the processes break down is first there's litigation, which is fighting in court. And then everything other than litigation is called an alternative. It's an alternative to litigation, alternative dispute resolution system. And the most common one is mediation, where you and your spouse or you and your spouse and your lawyers sit down with a mediator who's a neutral person, and he or she is trying to broker a deal, right? So the mediator isn't deciding anything for you. You're still making the decisions, but the mediator is helping brainstorm options, give you ideas, help you sort of hear each other when you're talking so that you can come to an agreement. Collaborative divorce is an entirely separate process. In collaborative, you and your lawyer, your spouse and your spouse's lawyer sit down at a table, maybe with a neutral financial professional who has helped you run numbers, maybe with a coach who helps you keep the emotions down and the conversation productive, maybe with a child specialist who can say, this kind of parenting plan tends to work better with children of your age than that kind of parenting plan. So you sit down and you work everything out in a series of talks, so you're working it out at a conference table instead of in a courtroom. But the thing with collaborative that makes it different is that everybody signs an agreement that says, we're going to do this outside of court. And if for whatever reason somebody goes back to court, then all of the professionals withdraw and you start over again, which gives you an incentive to stay at the table when talking gets tough.
So I have a question, Karen, because you're a divorce coach, lawyer, mediator. So what role do you play in any of those circumstances you just outlined?
Right now, all of my work is done as a coach. What's important is I can play a lot of roles, but I only play one in a case. So I'm not going to be everything to everybody. That's impossible. But what I'll do is I will be a coach, and my legal background informs the coaching. So I can tell you, how the court system works all across the country, right? I work with people all over the nation, actually all over the world, because it doesn't matter what the law is in your particular jurisdiction. I can tell you what questions to go ask a lawyer who does know what the law is in your area. And so you get the information from the lawyer, but then I coach my clients. I coach you to say, okay, now that I know what this is, what do I do with it? How do I figure out how to use it for me, right? So all of the work that I do now is coaching. Occasionally I'll take a mediation, and occasionally I'll do a legal consultation for somebody, which is to say to them, people get in the middle of their divorce and they're stuck and they don't know, how do they get out of this? Is my lawyer doing the right thing? Does my lawyer have my back? And so if you're in the state of Illinois, I'll take a look at everything and either say, yes, they do, they're doing a great job, or, I can give you some names. In a perfect world, 100% yes, because I take people and I help you, first of all, understand what your options are. Second of all, get prepared, because the better prepared you are, the better you're going to do, and make that plan for how you want to do this, because how you do it affects where you end up, and it affects how miserable or not your journey is to the point where you end up wherever you are.
Yeah, it's something that I don't think people realize how many options there are, because it's always just go to my attorney, which is, we always say like a coach or even a CDFA, Certified Divorce Financial Analyst, understand the finances, all those things. But it's interesting just from your perspective, how you said that is how the lawyer is telling you how they do things. Even like a workout coach, every workout coach does things differently. So you got to feel them out. Is this how I like it done? Is this what I'm looking for? And you're right. I mean, as much as everyone would just love to do mediation and we're all civil and we just get it done, it doesn't always work like that. And so it just can't always be that route, because not everyone is agreeing to that process.
But if you have a lawyer on your team who is reasonable and rational, even if you have to start by litigating, that doesn't mean that after things have calmed down a little bit, you can't go to mediation. You mentioned a CDFA. They are such an important professional. For anybody who has any kind of financial situation that's even the least bit complicated. Like if you're a W-2 employee, your spouse is a W-2 employee, you have a house, you have a retirement, that's it. It's not that complicated. You can still benefit from good financial advice. But if you've got anything more, if you've got a business, or your spouse has a business, or your spouse is an executive or you're an executive, you've got a complicated compensation package. There are different moving parts. You've got kids with special needs that have to maybe have a special needs trust. I mean, finances can get really complicated really fast. And while the lawyer can give you the broad strokes of how it works, everybody, I think, should have a financial professional by their side so they can have somebody interpreting the financial data for them and helping them see, okay, if you go down this road, this is what it's going to look like. It's a different financial picture, and somebody who can help them avoid the landmines and the potholes so that at the end of the divorce, they really are in a good financial position.
And so I know you talk a lot about being clear and confident when making choices during divorce. And so what are some things women can do, like before they even call a lawyer, to start protecting their finances?
This is going to sound counterintuitive, but get yourself a therapist and start dealing with your emotions, because your emotions will derail you faster than anything else. It's emotions that make you make rash decisions, that make you make decisions where you're just poking at the other person. You just want, I mean, come on, we all do it and we all need it. But the place to get your zest for revenge out is in a therapist's office, not at a negotiating table, because that's when you make a dumb financial decision. So get control over your emotions. That's number one. And understand your finances. You've got to know your numbers. And a lot of people, like, they start to shake when you talk about numbers. You've got to know your numbers. And if you don't know them, if you're not confident in them, before you open your mouth to negotiate, you get confident, or you have a financial advisor, an advocate with you in a negotiation, or you make sure your lawyer is filling that role, but you have somebody who's paying attention to the numbers, because at the end of the day, that's what finance and money is all about. It's numbers.
I just think we've heard so many stories where people are racked up in the courtroom for like mile points on credit cards, for a spoon collection, for like these things that are like so not worth the money. Nobody really wants them. They're not of value. You're paying much more for the attorney fees. And a little bit of therapy could go a long way, because you're not actually getting to the root of the problem. You're just kind of stirring the pot, and you're spending a lot of money on lawyers for points where it's like, yo, you could have just bought a flight to Tahiti by now.
100%. And I'll tell you a secret. I'll tell you a little story. When people are fighting about the Tupperware, it's never about the Tupperware. It's always about what's underneath it. So I was in a negotiation one time. Thankfully, the other lawyer was also a reasonable human. So there was the two of us and the two clients, and like this was a marathon negotiation, took hours and hours. Finally, we get this couple to the point where they're like, yeah, we got a deal, no problem. One of them gets up, I don't even remember which one, starts walking out the door, looks at the other one and goes, what about the vacuum cleaner? Everybody's going crazy. They're fighting. The whole deal is falling apart over vacuum cleaner. The other lawyer and I are looking at each other going, what kind of vacuum cleaner is this? Is this It was a Hoover. And so the other lawyer, like once they said that, then you realize it's not really the vacuum cleaner. The lawyer very calmly went in his pocket, picked out a quarter and said, we're not doing this. Heads or tails. Flipped the coin. Whoever won, and that was it. It was over. But to your point, I mean, people fight over crazy stuff. To give up a 4-hour negotiation that settled everything over a $200 vacuum cleaner made no sense.
No, not at all.
Crazy. So talking about emotions, how do you help women balance their emotions to make really good, smart, long-term financial moves?
It starts by letting yourself feel them. Because if you just push them down and you try to be like, no, I'm fine, you're not fine. And the emotions are still there. And the problem is they, as a mentor of mine used to say, they come out sideways. So usually when you're not expecting it at the worst possible moment, right? So you're talking about something completely different and all of a sudden you just get so angry, and that's when you start going crazy. And again, it affects your financial decisions. So deal with your emotions yourself. If that means therapy, if that means finding a good support group, a good coach, a good friends, although you burn your friends out after a while. But, it's talk to people, let yourself feel them, get them out. But then here's the key, let them go. We hang on because they're familiar. We got used to it. And so we get used to our own misery. You got to let it go.
Which I would argue is much easier said than done.
Oh, 100%. 100%.
Yeah, but it is true. I mean, you just got to accept those emotions, which I know is in any situation not always fun to feel, but you got to get through them. You can't just avoid them.
Yeah, it was like some famous person says, I always forget who said the quote. I think it was Roosevelt that said, the only way out is through.
For sure. So what are some of the mistakes that you see, like even the smartest women make when they're going through divorce?
A lot of women don't think about taxes.
Oh.
And taxes can dramatically affect how much money you put in your pocket at the end of the divorce. And people don't think about it because it's hidden. You can't see it. You're just looking at numbers. So some people make, like the classic mistake is trading a pre-tax asset for a post-tax asset because they're not worth the same. But one that's more hidden that a lot of people don't think about is, okay, we've got a stock account. We're going to divide it 50-50. Who gets what stock? If you take the stock that you've had for decades and that you bought for a small amount of money that have a lot of profit in them, like so they have a very low basis, then you're going to pay a lot of taxes on those stocks when you sell them. And if you give your spouse all the stocks that you bought last year that have a smaller profit margin, it looks like you're getting the same amount of money. You're not. So things like that is why having a financial professional with you, talking to a CPA, talking to someone who understands taxes and understands numbers becomes very important.
It is so hard to think kind of long term on those things. And we always say like a dollar today is not a dollar tomorrow, depending on what account they're from. I mean, I just think that's like another added element when you're trying to divide the money and divide the time. And am I going to have to move? And now it's like tax time because nobody likes taxes to begin with. So it can be a lot. And that is why you really need this full team around you, is because your lawyer doesn't know about the taxes. Some coaches who weren't lawyers before don't know about taxes, and that's why you really need a full team behind you.
I am a big proponent of having a team of professionals, and everybody shies away from that because they're like, oh, how much money is that going to cost me? But the truth is, if you do it properly, it doesn't have to cost you any more than what just having the lawyer would cost you, because a lot of financial advisors will work with you. Some are fee-based, but some will work with you for a percentage of assets under management. So you're not paying them necessarily for that advice. Lenders, if you need to refinance a house, they're not charging you for their advice necessarily. The same thing might be with a certified divorce real estate expert. So there are a lot of professionals that you can put together. And if you're using other professionals to do the jobs they're actually good at, then you need to spend less money with your lawyer because you're not having your lawyer do all the things that they really aren't the best at necessarily either. So there are ways to manage a team, but having the right professionals in place is going to put you farther ahead in the long run by far.
Yeah, we totally agree with that. And one other mistake we've heard women make, I'm guilty of this when I went through my divorce, is that they rush through it because they just want to get it over with. And in hindsight, they think, oh, I should have done X. We even had a financial professional who said, I'm a financial professional. I should have known better, right? But I just wanted to get through it. And in hindsight, I made mistakes.
Yeah, and it's for that financial professional, it's the shame of having to admit that, like, I don't know something, or there is no shame in this. And the best thing you can do is when you don't know something, ask questions. 5 minutes of looking stupid is better than a lifetime of being behind the 8 ball financially. And it just makes such a big difference to ask the questions, get the information, and you're 100% right. Don't rush through it. This is not a race, right? This is your life. There are no do-overs. You get one shot at it.
And I feel like the other benefit of kind of having that team is I hear a lot of people who are, an attorney is going to charge you like every 15 minutes. And so they won't get the questions out, or all of a sudden it's like brain freeze, and you forget them. And so if you have these other professionals who you can turn to who are actually experts in that area and won't charge you every 15 minutes, you feel a little bit more comfortable to take your time to ask the questions, to get them out, because you're not under this like time crunch. And it's like, well, if I ask this, it's going to be $400, right? Because it's
Yeah. And that's why I work with a lot of my clients on exactly this. What I've seen is they won't ask their lawyer for questions that they need the answers to because they don't want to have to pay. And that's being penny wise and pound foolish. But you have to know what questions are worth the asking and which questions are just wasting your lawyer's time. And that's why, as a coach, I help people figure that out so they can optimize the time they spend with their lawyers and ask the questions that they really need answered. And that's one of the things, that's why I work differently than a lawyer does these days, because I want people to ask questions. I want my clients to be completely informed and empowered to make a good decision. You can't make a good decision if you don't have full information.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about prenups. I know they're not totally for celebrities anymore or billionaires, but, do you think women should be considering them before marriage?
100%. I think every woman, every person needs a prenup, and here's why. It's not about the prenup. It's about the conversations that it forces you to have with the person that you're about to marry about money. I mean, look, I believe in getting married for love. I'm totally down with that. I did it. I think everyone should do it. It's an awesome thing. However, you also got to know What are that person's priorities? How do they manage money? Are they in debt? Do they have a lot of money? Are they a spender or are they a saver? And having the conversations that you have to have in order to draft a prenup forces you to ask the questions and have those conversations instead of sort of saying, oh no, we're on the same page about everything. We agree on everything. I remember counseling a client years and years ago, and she was in love, and this was her second marriage, and she just it was his second marriage, and we're just going to get married. I'm going to sell everything I have, move out of state, down with him and his kids. And by the way, she had no kids, so she had never had to deal with kids, and it's going to be perfect. I love everything about him. And I said, you need a prenup. And I kind of put my foot down with her and said, really, you should think about it. Oh, and by the way, he was a lawyer. So he wasn't really excited about the idea, but she ended up negotiating a prenup with him because I said to her, look, if things go south, I know you're in love. I know this is going to last forever. But in case it doesn't, you just sold everything. You can't get back to zero. So you need some money from him that if this goes south, you can come back here, get a place, because I think she was a teacher. So her job, like, she wouldn't be able to start until September. So what if things go south in December? Now you got to wait 9 months before you get a paycheck, blah, 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 blah. Long story short, they negotiated a prenup. It was reasonable. They both agreed. The marriage lasted 6 months.
No. Oh, no. Thank goodness for you. Yeah, right?
But that's the thing. It's like you don't see it when you're in it and your eyes are blinded by love, and that's a beautiful place to be. But if you're going to spend your life with someone, you have to know if you're on the same page about certain things and having the conversations. Now, in her situation, having the conversations about money didn't help, but the relationship fell apart for other reasons. But at least she had something to start again with.
And this is a conversation that I try to have with a lot of like my girlfriends who are getting married. And there's so much pushback of like, neither of us have much. It's not necessary. We're both just working, just paying off some debt and trying to save some money. And we're both kind of starting at ground zero. There's nothing that we need to do there. Like, what would you kind of give for that pushback?
I would tell them about Steven Spielberg. So Steven Spielberg and Amy, whatever her name was, that got married. It was his first marriage. They were young. They didn't have anything. He was a nobody. And they get married, and he becomes Steven Spielberg. He becomes the big director. He's a bazillionaire, all this fame and fortune and blah, blah, blah. Their marriage falls apart. She wants to get a divorce. He said, no, we had a prenup. And she was like, what? Yeah, everything that I created, that's mine. We wrote the prenup on the back of a napkin at a restaurant. And I don't remember if he produced the dirty napkin or whatever. Anyways, it did not hold up in court. But that's why, because you don't want to have the conversations, because it doesn't matter if both of you have nothing now. You still want to know, how do you deal with things as they come? You want to be on the same page. And because in this instance, because they had no prenup, he tried to say, no, the prenup said everything I make during the marriage is mine, right? So yeah, it didn't go very far. But that's why having that prenup that clearly lays out, this is how we are going to treat our finances if our marriage ends, is super helpful. And by the way, I don't mean to be like the bearer of doom and gloom. Every marriage ends. It's either going to end in death or divorce, one of the two. Now, maybe you both go down in a plane crash at the same time, but they all end. And so there's wisdom to talking about, nobody wants to do it, but wisdom to talking about what happens if it ends by death, what happens if it ends by divorce, particularly if you're in a second marriage situation, either one of you, because then you might have kids from another marriage. And the last thing you want is your kids and your new spouse to be fighting with each other over money when you're gone. You just don't want that.
Yeah, these are just important conversations to have and to really open. And sometimes you think you talk about everything until someone asks you a question and you're like, you're right. That's a topic we have not touched. We talked about how we'll split finances, but not what we're going to do once we have kids if someone's going to stay home. We only got so far. And so it's great to have someone just get those things that it's not like you avoided it. You just didn't know that topic needed to be discussed.
Yeah, and I like the fact of discussing money before you get married, because I've heard sad stories of not realizing, oh, I got married, I didn't realize he had $200,000 in student loans or something like that, like huge student loan debt, which now we can't get a house. Now we can't do so many things we want to do.
And it's not that you wouldn't marry him anyway. Maybe you choose to, but you made an informed decision, right? You went in with your eyes open, which then if you can't get that house, now all of a sudden, are you angry that he has the student loan debt? Yeah, you're upset that you're in the situation, but he told you. So you made the decision yourself. You take responsibility for it. It changes the dynamic of the relationship.
For sure.
And so this is a question we like to ask everybody on our podcast. And I know you've coached so many women through massive transitions, but I kind of want to flip it. And so what's your definition of financial freedom, Karen?
Being able to do what you want, when you want, and with who you want.
Yay.
That's it.
I love it. That's easy peasy. It's spot on.
Yeah, because, I mean, people have different, like they may put a dollar amount, like I want $1 million. If I had $1 million, I'll be financially free. Well, $1 million when I was a young girl is very different than having $1 million today. It's not what it used to be, right? So by putting a certain number on it, I don't think that really conveys financial freedom. But if you have enough money that you can do what you want, and that might be you only have that $1 million, but you live a life that's really basic and you're fine with it and you're totally happy. Cool. Yay. You have higher needs, higher desires. You need, great. You have more in the bank. Yeah, it doesn't matter. It's what, can you do what you want, when you want, and with whom?
Yeah, I love that. And so, Karen, I'd love for you to kind of share with the audience, and of course, we'll have everything in the show notes, but, how they can find you, how they can follow you, how they can work with you, all those good things.
The best place to find me is on my website. It's KarenCovy.com, KarenCovy.com. There's no E in my version of Covey, or I'd be related to somebody famous and I wouldn't have to work for a living. But yeah, so the website is probably, I'm also on all the socials. I'm everywhere at Karen Covy. So I'm easy to find.
Awesome. Yeah, I think in just this quick, short episode, you shared so many great tips and some that we don't always hear about. So I'm glad you're able to come on and give us a bit of your coaching hat and a bit of your lawyer hat to help us coach us through these times, as they're not easy and we don't want to rush through them, but we want to make sure we're making the best financial decisions for ourselves and for our families. So thank you again, Karen, for coming on today. And until next time, be financially fearless.
You've been listening to Women in Money, the shit we don't talk about. Now it's time to take what you've learned and make bold moves towards financial independence. Stay in the know by joining our newsletter for exclusive tools, resources, and updates that keep you financially fearless. Head to pursestrings.co and sign up today. Need a financial professional who gets it? Turn to PurseStrings' curated directory, your go-to resource for financial experts who know how to put you first. Love this episode? Leave us a review and help us empower even more women to own their financial power. Until next time, be financially fearless.